My son called me a burden at 72, so I packed one bag and disappeared. 3 months later, a stranger knocked on my door and said 5 words that broke me open. My name is Eleanor, and I need you to understand something before I begin. I am not a dramatic woman. I never have been. I do not cry at commercials. I do not call people just to talk about my feelings. I grew up in a house where you dealt with things quietly, put your shoulders back, and kept moving. But what happened to me in the last 2 years of my life, it broke something open inside me that I did not even know was locked. So if you will sit with me for a few minutes, I would like to tell you the whole truth. It was a Tuesday evening in Indianapolis. I remember that specifically, Tuesday, because Tuesday is such an ordinary day. Nothing important is supposed to happen on a Tuesday. I had made chicken soup from scratch, the real kind, with bones, black pepper, bay leaves, and carrots I had cut myself. The kitchen smelled warm and safe, the way a home is supposed to smell. My son Daniel was sitting at the table eating. His wife Melissa was scrolling her phone. Their teenage son Aiden had already disappeared into his room. I was standing at the counter with a dish towel in my hands, and I was thinking about nothing in particular when Daniel looked up from his bowl and said it, calmly, easily, like he was commenting on the weather. "Mom, you've become a burden." The clock kept ticking. The refrigerator kept humming. The soup kept steaming. And I just stood there with a dish towel in my hands, feeling like the floor had slowly tilted beneath my feet. I want you to understand, it was not the words alone that hurt me. It was the ease of it, the way he said it while still eating my soup, the way Melissa did not look up from her phone, the way the whole room just kept moving as if nothing important had been said, as if I were already invisible. Let me back up. My husband Thomas died 6 years before that Tuesday. We had been married for 39 years. He was a quiet man, not the kind who said beautiful things, but the kind who showed up. He fixed things without being asked. He held my hand during scary movies, even though we both pretended he was not scared. He had rough, tired hands and a slow, warm smile. When he died, the house went so quiet it hurt. So when Daniel called 2 years later and said his construction business had collapsed, that he needed a place to stay just for a few months, just until things stabilized, I said yes immediately. I said yes before he even finished asking, because what else was I going to do with all that quiet? What I did not understand then was the difference between opening your home and surrendering it. In the first few weeks, it was fine. A little crowded, a little loud, but fine. I was glad for the noise, glad to cook for more than one, glad to hear footsteps in the hallway at night. But then a few months became 6 months. 6 months became a year became 2, and slowly, so slowly I barely noticed it happening, Nothing in that house felt like mine anymore. Melissa changed the living room curtains because the old ones were depressing. She did not ask me. She just changed them. Daniel sold half of Thomas's tools from the garage without mentioning it to me. When I asked about them later, he shrugged and said they were just taking up space. My reading chair, the old blue one where I had spent 30 years with books and tea, disappeared into the basement one afternoon. Aidan needed the space for his gaming setup. Little pieces of my life removed one at a time. And because I wanted peace, because I did not want to be difficult, because I kept telling myself, this is family, this is what you do for family, I let too many things pass. The money problem started quietly. Daniel asked me for $500 first, said it was for a car payment. I gave it to him without hesitation. Then $1,200 for something related to a new business idea. Then $3,000 for a partnership opportunity that disappeared 2 months later without explanation. Every time he asked, he wrapped the request in something I could not easily refuse. Mom, I'm trying my best. Mom, this is for the family. Mom, if you don't help us now, how are we ever supposed to get back on our feet? And every time I gave what I had. And every time I told myself it was the last time. It was not the last time. Then one afternoon, while I was organizing some papers in the hallway drawer, I found a bank notice addressed to me, a late payment warning. I assumed it was a mistake. I almost put it aside, but something made me open it. I sat down at the kitchen table and read it twice. Someone had opened a home equity line of credit against my house. My house. The house Thomas and I had spent 18 years paying off. The house where I had raised Daniel. The house where I had planted the tomatoes every spring and painted the hallway twice and hung Thomas's fishing photographs in the study. The signature on the application looked like mine if you squinted at it from across the room, but up close it was wrong, clumsy, like someone had practiced it but not enough. My hands were cold when I walked to the dinner table that night, but my voice was steady. Daniel, I said, holding up the letter, what is this? He barely looked at it. Oh, that, he said, just like that. Oh, that, like I was asking about a parking ticket. Melissa kept eating. What do you mean, oh, that? I asked. He sighed the way people sigh when they think you are overreacting. I was going to tell you, he said, we needed some temporary access to funds. And honestly, Mom, the house is going to be mine one day anyway. I'm your only son. The room went very still inside me. You forged my name, I said. He put down his spoon. Don't make it sound criminal. Because it is criminal. His face changed then. It did not go ashamed. It went annoyed, like I was the one being unreasonable. You don't understand how much pressure we're under, he said. I'm doing what I have to do. I stood up slowly. What you have to do, I said, is get out of my house. Melissa laughed, a short, sharp sound. Daniel leaned back in his chair and looked at me the way you look at someone who does not understand a basic fact. Mom, be serious. You can barely get up the basement stairs without holding the railing. You cannot manage this place alone. He was right about the stairs. My knees had been bad for 2 years, but cruelty always finds the most efficient weapon. I said, "Get out," I told him. And that was when he said the second thing I will never forget. He smiled, a smile I had never seen on his face before, and he said, "You should be grateful we're even here. Without us, you'd just be some lonely old woman talking to tomatoes in the backyard." Melissa laughed again. Aidan said nothing. He was looking at his phone. And somewhere inside me, something went completely still. Not shattered, not broken, still, like a lake right before a storm, when everything goes flat and quiet and the birds stop singing. I looked at my son, the boy I had held in a hospital at 28 years old, the boy I had taught to ride a bike in this driveway, the boy I had driven to football practice and helped with science projects and prayed over when he had pneumonia at age 9. And I understood something clearly for the first time. The boy I had raised was gone, and the man sitting in his chair did not see me as a person anymore. He saw me as a resource, old, slowing down, easy to manage. I went to my bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed where Thomas used to sleep. I pressed my hand flat against his side of the mattress. Then I made a plan. I called Ruth the next morning. Ruth has been my closest friend since college. She is a retired nurse, practical, sharp, and completely intolerant of nonsense. She lives about 40 minutes away in a small town. When she answered and heard my voice, she did not say hello. She said, "What happened?" I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then she said, "Pack a bag. Come here, today." By nightfall, I was sitting in Ruth's guest room. 1 suitcase, my medications, my important papers in a folder, and Thomas's wedding ring on a chain around my neck because I could not leave it behind. I did not leave Daniel a note. I wanted him to wake up one morning and not know where I was. I wanted him to feel, just once, what uncertainty feels like. The next morning, sitting at Ruth's kitchen table, I called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Martin Hale. He was gray-haired and patient and impossible to rattle. He listened to everything. He reviewed the bank documents. He asked careful, clear questions. Within a week, he had frozen the line of credit, filed a fraud complaint with the bank, and begun eviction proceedings. Daniel called me 17 times in 2 days. The messages came next. "Mom, How could you do this to your own family? Melissa texted, you are destroying Aiden's life over paperwork. Then Daniel's voice changed, got harder, got cold. If you go through with this, don't expect to ever hear from us again. That one found the soft place, not because I believed it would last, but because I finally understood. He genuinely thought access to himself was a reward, something I was supposed to be afraid to lose. I stopped responding, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I slept through the night. 3 weeks later, Daniel and his family were legally removed from my house. I did not go back to watch. Martin handled it. Ruth made tea. We sat at her kitchen table together in silence while rain tapped the windows, and I held Thomas's ring through my shirt and just breathed. When Martin called that evening, he warned me gently that the house had not been left in good condition. That was an understatement. The front door was scratched up. The living room smelled like old food. Thomas's framed photograph, our wedding photo, had been left face down on the floor, not fallen, placed. Someone had turned it face down deliberately. Several drawers had been emptied. My china cabinet was chipped. The backyard tomatoes had completely dried up, and sitting on the kitchen counter, all by itself, was a handwritten note from Daniel. Just 5 words. Hope the house keeps you warm. No apology, no shame, just spite, written in his own handwriting, left on my kitchen counter. I stood in the middle of that wrecked kitchen, my house, the place Thomas and I had built our life, and I let myself cry for exactly 2 minutes. Then I rolled up my sleeves, because pain is very heavy, but work, if you let it, can be lighter. For the next 2 months, I cleaned and sorted and donated and repaired. Ruth came every Saturday without being asked. My neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, fixed the back fence. I repainted the hallway a soft cream color that Daniel had once called Old Lady Beige. I bought new floral curtains for the living room, the kind I had always liked, and hung them myself. I brought Thomas's photo back up and put it somewhere better, somewhere it could see the whole room. Slowly, the house started breathing again, and so did I. It was a Thursday afternoon in early September. I was in the kitchen slicing peaches, listening to the radio, thinking about nothing in particular. Someone knocked on the door. I wiped my hands and opened it. A young man stood on my porch, maybe 30 years old, navy suit, leather folder, serious face but kind eyes. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks? Yes. My name is Owen Parker. I'm with Parker and Dean Asset Recovery in Chicago. I apologize for arriving without warning. I've been trying to locate you for several months. I told him I was not interested in buying anything. He almost smiled. I'm not selling anything, ma'am. I'm here because your name appears in an unclaimed beneficiary file connected to a trust set up in 1998 by a man named Vincent Mercer. The name meant nothing to me. I'm sorry, I said. You must have the wrong person. He opened the folder. Did you work as a receptionist at Mercer Industrial Supply in Indianapolis in 1971? My breath stopped. Yes, I said slowly, less than a year, before I got married. He nodded. Then we have the right person. I let him in. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Daniel had told me I was a burden. Funny and a little painful how the same four walls can hold both the worst and the best moments of a life. Owen explained carefully. Vincent Mercer had founded a manufacturing company that became very successful. He had died the previous year at age 93. Most of his estate had gone to charities and business foundations and distant family. But one trust account, worth just over $2.8 million, had been set aside specifically for a woman named Eleanor Grace Brooks, formerly Eleanor Grace Whitaker. Me. I stared at him. There must be a mistake, I said. He slid a document across the table. It was a copy of a handwritten letter. Old paper, old handwriting. My name was in the very first line. Eleanor, if this letter has reached you, then I am already gone. I do not expect you to remember me kindly, if you remember me at all. My voice was barely a whisper. Who was Vincent Mercer to me? Owen paused, then answered carefully. According to personal papers found in his estate, he was your biological father. The room went completely silent. I was born in 1951. My mother died when I was 12. I was raised by my aunt after that. I had grown up believing my father was a mechanic from Dayton who had walked away before I was old enough to remember him. No photos, no birthday cards, no explanations, just a hole shaped like a man. And now this young stranger was sitting at my kitchen table, telling me that the man who left had spent 60 years watching from a distance and had left me nearly $3 million. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because sometimes your mind cannot process shock any other way. Sometimes all it can do is make a strange sound. Owen explained the rest gently. My mother had worked briefly for Vincent Mercer when she was 19. They had a secret relationship. His wealthy family disapproved. When she became pregnant, she left the city. There had been letters between them. Money sent quietly through intermediaries. Years later, Mercer had tried to re-establish contact. My aunt refused. She had believed he forfeited that right when he let my mother leave. Maybe she was right. Maybe she was not. I do not know. By the time I was old enough to ask hard questions, everyone who knew the full truth was already gone. I spent several days reading through the estate papers by myself. I did not even tell Ruth at first. I just needed time to sit inside the information and feel all of it. There were letters from Vincent to my mother, long ones, painful ones. The handwriting of a young man who did not know how to be brave enough. There were receipts for support payments sent quietly year after year. And there was one photograph, a young woman with dark hair holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. The baby was me. He had known I existed. He had watched from far away. He had not done enough, but he had never forgotten. I did not know exactly how to feel about that. Grief is complicated enough when you lose someone you loved. Grief for someone you never had is a stranger, sadder thing entirely. A month later, after all the legal verification was completed, the funds were released. At 72 years old, I became a woman with more money than I had ever imagined having in my entire life. The first thing I bought was not jewelry, not a car, not a vacation. I hired a plumber to finally fix the upstairs bathroom the right way. I think that tells you everything you need to know about who I am. The second thing I did was pay off Ruth's remaining mortgage. She cried so hard she could not speak for a full minute. Then she grabbed my hand across the table and held it, and we did not need to say anything at all. The third thing I did was set up an education trust for Aiden. Yes, my grandson, Daniel's son. Not because Daniel deserved it, not because Melissa deserved it, but because children should not always be punished for the failures of their parents. And Aiden was 16 and scared and trying to figure out who he was going to be. He deserved a chance that had nothing to do with what his father had done. The money was structured so that neither Daniel nor Melissa could ever touch it. It could only be used for school or job training after Aiden turned 18. I set it up. I did not announce it. I just did it. About 10 days after Daniel found out about the inheritance, he called. I almost did not answer. Almost. His voice was softer than I had heard in years. Mom, I said nothing. I heard some things. I imagine you did, I said. He cleared his throat. Maybe things got out of hand between us. Maybe. Not I was wrong. Not I am sorry. Just maybe. As if what he had done were a weather event that had happened to both of us equally. Melissa and I have been under a lot of pressure, he said. There it was, the same old trick. Describe your own cruelty as though it were a symptom. Make it sound like something that happened to you, not something you chose. He kept going, said he missed me, said he wanted to sit down and talk about the future, about family, about what makes sense. Money always introduces itself eventually. There is nothing to discuss, I said. Silence. Then, so you're just going to keep it all? All. As if something left to me by a stranger, a father who failed me from a distance, was somehow owed to the son who betrayed me up close. I'm going to use what is mine responsibly, I said. Mom, come on. I'm your son. Yes, I said, you are. He did not like the way I said it. He came to my house the following week with yellow roses, grocery store flowers, the kind people buy when they need forgiveness quickly and do not know how to earn it slowly. I did not invite him in. He stood on the porch looking older than I remembered, tired, smaller somehow. I made mistakes, he said. Yes. I was under pressure. You've said that. You don't understand what it's like. I looked at him for a long moment. I understand enough, I said. I understand that when I was vulnerable, you took from me. I understand that when I asked to be treated with basic dignity, you chose humiliation instead. And I understand that you came back the moment you heard there was money. His face went red. That's not fair. No, I said. What you did to me was not fair. He looked over my shoulder into the house, maybe looking for the woman he remembered, the one who always opened the door wider, the one who always made room. Are you really going to shut me out forever? I am not shutting you out, I told him. I am standing exactly where you pushed me. He set the flowers down on the porch rail, and he left. One afternoon in May, Aidan came to see me alone. He was taller than I remembered, 16, trying so hard to look like he was not feeling anything. I made him grilled cheese and tomato soup without asking if he wanted it. He sat at my kitchen table and stared at the steam rising from the bowl. After a long silence, he said, "Dad says you hate us." "No," I said, "I don't hate anyone." He nodded, still looking at the table. Then he took a breath. "I heard what he said to you that night, the burden thing. I was in the hallway." I went very still. "I wanted to say something," Aidan said quietly. "I didn't. I just stood there." He looked up then, and what I saw in his face was something I had not seen in Daniel's face in a very long time. Guilt, the real kind, the kind that lives in your chest and does not let you sleep. "That wasn't your job," I told him gently. "You were a child. That was never your job." His eyes filled up. He blinked quickly and looked back down at his soup. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he whispered. Those 3 words, they healed something in me that I had not even realized was still bleeding. Not all at once, not completely. Some wounds close slowly, and that is okay, but enough to feel the difference. We talked for almost 2 hours that afternoon, about school, about engines. He wanted to learn auto mechanics, about his fear of turning into his father. I told him that becoming a good man begins the exact moment you are honest about a bad one. He came back the next month, and the month after that. Quietly, carefully, something real grew between us, not built on obligation, not built on guilt, built on choice, his choice to show up, my choice to let him in. That is the only kind of love worth having. He showed up one more time, about a year after the Tuesday with the soup. He looked worse. The desperate shine was gone. In its place was something flatter and more honest. Real life had been less forgiving than he had expected, and he looked like a man who was finally beginning to understand that. "I don't need money," he said before I could speak. That was new. "Then why are you here?" I asked. He looked past me toward the backyard. My tomatoes were growing again, tall, green, full of small yellow flowers. I wanted to say I was wrong. I waited. A real apology has weight. It names the specific damage. It does not float around the edges looking for an easy landing. He took a breath. "I stole from you. I treated you like you didn't matter. I let Melissa disrespect you in your own home. I said ugly things because I was angry at my own life, and it was easier to take it out on you than to look at myself. And when you left, I blamed you for it, because blaming you was easier than the truth." There it was, imperfect, incomplete, but real enough to be worth hearing. I did not rush forward to hug him. Forgiveness is not a race, and it is not the same as trust. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself. Trust is something that has to be earned back, carefully, over a long time, with repeated proof. "I appreciate you saying that," I told him. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were," he said. "No," I agreed, "they won't." He nodded slowly, and in that small nod something shifted. Not a reunion, not a movie ending. Life is rarely that clean or that fast, but the beginning of something honest, something careful. Coffee in public places, short phone calls, the slow, cautious process of a son proving to his mother, one small choice at a time, that he understood what he had done and who he wanted to be instead. On the first anniversary of the day I walked out of my own home with one suitcase and Thomas's ring around my neck, I sat on the back porch at sunset. The tomatoes were tall behind me. Ruth had come for dinner. The kitchen smelled like something good. And I thought about the woman I used to be. The woman who mistook silence for peace. The woman who confused being needed with being loved. The woman who had let her own home become a place where she was managed instead of cherished, and had told herself it was fine, it was family, it was what good women do. I did not judge her. She did the best she could with the tools she had. She survived. But I was so grateful not to be her anymore. So here is what I want to say to you wherever you are listening from. There is a difference between love and access. There is a difference between forgiveness and permission. There is a difference between keeping the peace and disappearing into it. And there comes a time in some women's lives, in some people's lives, when the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop offering yourself to people who only know how to take. At 72, my son called me a burden. At 73, I learned I was never a burden at all. I was a woman with a paid-off house, one loyal friend, a garden full of tomatoes, a painful truth about where I came from, and enough hard-won wisdom to know that peace is worth protecting with everything you have. The best part of my story was never the money. It was never the inheritance from a father I never knew. The best part was the morning I woke up in Ruth's guest room with one suitcase and no note left behind, and realized for the first time in years that my life still belonged entirely to me, and that I was going to keep it that way.